Welcome to my YouTube channel. So today I am going to show you how you can create the ECR image using the Docker. So using the Terraform actually. So what we will do, we will create the ECR repository. Also we will build the Docker image using the Terraform, and we will push the Docker image to the ECR repository using the Terraform. So actually I saw many people are created video around this topic, but they are using the null resource in Terraform for pushing the Docker image. But if you are using the null resource, then your Terraform code or that null resource code will be the static, not a dynamic, because every time when you are creating the like a repository or creating the pushing the Docker image to the new repository, you need to change the your null resource code. So in that way that code is little bit of static. So right now I am using the core Terraform for creating the Docker image and pushing it the Docker image to the ECR repository. So here if you can observe that in my like state file I don't have any resource, right? So let me use the tf show command, tf for the Terraform. So I just mentioned their alias, so I am using the Terraform for that. So you can see that the state file as are empty. In my AWS account as well, you can see that there is no Docker image or no ECR image present. Now let me explain the code one by one step. So here we have Terraform, then we have required provider. So I am using the AWS and the Docker. After that I am just using the some local variable to mention my default tags. Then we are using the AWS provider and the Docker provider. So in the AWS provider I am just mention here the region, and the Docker provider I use the AWS ECR authentication token data resource, because this resource will authenticate the connection from the ECR repository to our local Docker hub. So this resource is important for the Docker provider. In this here you can see that I am just using the address like the proxy endpoint, like the ECR endpoint, username and password, which will automatically get from these resources. You don't need to mention or set up anything on the ECR side. You just have to use this resource. This resource will automatically take your local AWS credential and perform the handshake. So now you can see that my Docker provider which are in setup. Also I am using the data resources. Now one thing is pending in this side here, the host. So this host is the local host. We can say not a local host, but it's a local Docker provider path. So for the like Terraform required to build the Docker image, right? So for that they need a like in-machine setup for the Docker. So I'm just using this path, which is showing me that my Docker is installed on this docker.sock file on this like location. You just need to pick this path from that. So if you are using the Ubuntu or something like that, then this path is present on your var run folder. So based on that, based on your operating system, you can check that. So I am using Mac, so my path which are present in this repository, you just need to check this file. This file is important. Whatever this path is, you just have to use this file. Now everything is set up in the provider path, right? So let's do tf init. So once tf init is completed, then we can do the apply. Meanwhile, let me show you how we can create these things. So in the resource section I am creating the ECR repository. Also there is I am giving the name my Jupyter notebook repository, which I am using the mutable tag because I want my image to be the mutable, and scan on push true. So this is the some setup that I mention here, but based on your use case you can add the furthermore. So now you can see that I have the Docker image, right? So I am using the Docker image resource which are present from the Docker provider. In the Jupyter I am just giving the name, providing the image name, also build. In the context I am just giving the path where my Docker file is present. In my case you can see that my Docker file is present on the Jupyter notebook folder inside the Docker file. So you don't need to mention the Docker file path, like mention the Docker file here, but you just have to mention the path until that folder. Now I am using the tag. So tag here I am using the ECR repository and repository URL. So why I am doing this, because we want to push this Docker image, right? So if you are using the ECR directly using the Docker command line, so at that time as well you just need to push, or you just need to use the ECR URL for that. So I'm just using that same as well. I'm just using the v1 as a tag. So we can use the many of the time using the latest tag. So I'm using the v1 version 1. Now you can see that in the Docker repository image, so this resource also is also belong from the Docker provider. So in this you can see that I am using the Docker repository image and Docker. I am just using this resource with the name, and in the name section I am using the same tag which are present here, because my image is already built using this resource, right? This resource is responsible for building the image, and this resource is responsible for pushing the image. So for build the image I am using the tag with the same name, and for pushing image I am just using the same name tag, only same name tag, and it will automatically push my image to my current or my respective ECR repository. Now it depends on attribute is important here, because if the build is completed then push my image. Before that don't do that, otherwise Terraform will be give you some error. So please use the depend on tag, depend on attribute, to make sure that the once build is completed then after that push the image to our Docker repository, so ECR repository, sorry for that. So now my everything I mentioned everything here in the Docker file. You can see that I am just initial I use the Jupyter notebook image, and also using the workday directory. Also I am just copy the requirement.txt file to my Docker container inside that, and I am just using the run command to install some of my packages and expose port to my AT. So now in the requirement.txt I am just using the pandas, numpy and matplotlib. So this is the straightforward code. So let's do tf apply. So it will plan my resource, and once that plan is completed then we can do that apply. Before that we can see here nothing is here. So it's giving me, then you can see that there are going to create 3 resources: Docker registry image, Docker image and ECR repository. So let's do yes. So it will take some time, because you can see that my repository is creation completed. If I go to the AWS console and I refresh the page, you can see that my repository is created, Jupyter notebook. So it will start pushing. You can see that my image is start pushing. So it will take some time, because for the pushing the image is around like 500 MB. So it will take some time. So meanwhile we can see that okay, my Docker TF state is completed. I am not using any backend here. If you want to use, you can also use the S3 backend. And Docker Docker provider is responsible for the creating or pushing the Docker image. In the Docker provider also, these are the Terraform Docker provider, which will give you the more resources like the creating the network, Docker network, creating the container using the Terraform and things like that. You can explore more. So you can see that my image start pushing to my ECR repository. Also it's created, actually it's built successfully, because before the video I built the image, so that in that way it didn't take much time. But for pushing the image it will take some time. If I go to the my Docker here, so if I refresh the page here, in the image section you can see that this image is created successfully. It's not around like 5 MB, it's around 1.30 to 34 GB, but it will take 5 seconds, 5 or 10 seconds most maximum of the time. So now you can see that my image is creation completed. It start pushing, and once it will push, it will give you it will show you here. Before that, if you like this video, please hit the like button, and if you want to subscribe, please subscribe to this channel. So I am posting the video around the talk around the DevSecOps and the machine learning things, so you can get notification once I post the video, so you can do that. So you can see that it will take Also, one thing is I want to mention here, like when you are creating the image, sometimes image give you the error if that image is already present in your local. So at that time you just have to remove that image from the local and push it and then build the image. So some of the time if you are using the same state file, then this will not give you any error. But if you are using the different state file and creating the same image with same name, then at that time it will give you the error. So you can see that my apply is completed, 3 resources are created. Let's go to our AWS console. You can see that inside that my AWS console, v1 image is, with the tag v1, the image is successfully pushed. The size is around, it shrink my size, so it is default behavior of the ECR. So now you can see that everything is done and my push is successfully F1. So now, yeah, that's pretty much from this video. Thank you for watching this video. Also, I put my blog link on my description, so you can check there, like or get the like code from that blog and run it on your local environment. So thank you.